The great hall of the Galactic Council sparkled like a sea of stars. Thousands of beings from across the galaxy sat in rising tiers, their bodies glowing, floating, or simply sitting in chairs designed for their unique forms. The air smelled of exotic flowers and hummed with the soft sounds of hundreds of translation devices working at once. Ambassador James Stone walked to the center platform with steady steps. His plain black suit and tie stood out among the shimmering robes and bioluminescent bodies of the other species. He carried a small data device in his hand, and his gray eyes held the calm look of someone who knew something others didn't. "Honorable members of the Council," he began, his voice clear and strong. "Earth brings you news of our latest scientific breakthrough." He paused as scattered laughter echoed through the chamber. The crystalline bright ones, their bodies shining with internal light, made bell-like sounds that their translators converted to mocking chuckles. High Commissioner, Light of Pure Reason, leader of the Bright Ones, spoke. His crystal body flashed with colors of amusement. "Please, Ambassador Stone, entertain us with another of humanity's fascinating theories." More laughter followed his words. Stone smiled slightly. "We have developed the theoretical framework for seventh-dimensional travel." He held up the data device, which projected a complex series of equations into the air. The laughter grew louder. Even species that usually stayed quiet joined in. A blob-like being near the front actually split into 3 parts from shaking so hard with amusement. "Seventh-dimensional travel." Light of Pure Reason's voice dripped with scorn. "We, the Bright Ones, mastered fifth-dimensional travel over 10,000 years ago. After millions of calculations and experiments, we proved that sixth-dimensional travel was impossible. And you humans, who only achieved spaceflight 200 years ago, claim to have solved seventh-dimensional travel." Stone nodded calmly. "That is correct." In the back of the chamber, Admiral Reed of Earth's Space Force watched silently. His weathered face showed no emotion, but his hand tightened slightly on his uniform's armrest. He knew what waited in the secret base under Mars Olympus Mons. He knew why Stone could stay so calm in the face of all this mockery. "Perhaps," a serpentine alien called out, "they counted wrong. They might think 7 comes after 2. This brought fresh waves of laughter. Stone waited for the noise to die down. "We understand your skepticism. Humanity is young compared to most species here. We still have much to learn. But we believe our calculations are correct." He began explaining the theory, using simple diagrams that appeared in the air. The Bright Ones' crystalline bodies flickered with patterns that their kind used to show disbelief and amusement. Other species either laughed openly or tried to hide their smiles, depending on their diplomatic training. Ambassador Stone, Light of Pure Reason, interrupted, his voice like chiming bells. "You do realize that your calculations break at least 15 laws of physics that we discovered thousands of years ago. Laws that have been proven true across multiple galaxies." "Yes," Stone replied. "We are aware that our theory doesn't match current galactic physics. We believe this means current galactic physics is incomplete." This statement brought the loudest laughter yet. Some delegates had to excuse themselves from the chamber. They were laughing so hard. In his seat, Admiral Reed allowed himself a small smile. Let them laugh, he thought. Let them think humanity was just a bunch of primitive dreamers. It made keeping the real project secret so much easier. Stone packed up his data device as the council chairman, a being made of pure energy, called for order. "Thank you, Ambassador Stone," the chairman said, amusement clear in his glowing form. "We will, carefully consider Earth's presentation. Perhaps we should move on to more serious matters." As Stone walked back to his seat, delegates from a dozen species reached out to pat him on the back or shoulder, each touch carrying the clear message: "Nice try, little human. Better luck next time." Stone sat down next to Admiral Reed. Both men kept their faces carefully neutral as the council moved on to discuss trade routes and border disputes. They knew that soon, very soon, No one in this chamber would be laughing at humanity anymore. In the darkness of space, under the red sands of Mars, something wonderful and terrible waited. Something that would change everything. Deep beneath the surface of Mars, in a chamber larger than 3 football fields, Dr. Lisa Gray stood before the most advanced ship ever built by human hands. The INS Mobius floated in the center of the chamber, held in place by gravity fields. Its silver hull twisted in ways that hurt the eyes to look at, like a ribbon that turned through dimensions that shouldn't exist. Engine test sequence 6 ready to begin, a voice announced over the speakers. The chamber hummed with power as the ship's systems came online. Lisa checked the readings on her tablet. After 15 years of work, they were finally ready. She thought back to her college days when everyone said her theories about consciousness and dimensional travel were crazy. Now those same theories had led to humanity's greatest achievement. All personnel, clear the testing area, she ordered. The few technicians working near the ship quickly moved back behind the safety barriers. Begin power-up sequence. The ship's hull began to glow with a soft blue light. Strange patterns moved across its surface like oil on water. According to all known physics, the patterns shouldn't exist. According to the Bright One's advanced science, the ship shouldn't even work. But Lisa and her team had discovered something the Bright Ones had missed. The human mind naturally connected to higher dimensions in ways their crystalline brains couldn't understand. Power at 20%, reported Tom, her chief engineer. His fingers moved quickly over the control panel. Quantum matrix stable. Consciousness interface online. Lisa smiled. The aliens thought humans were primitive because they couldn't match the Bright One's pure logical thinking. They didn't realize this difference was humanity's greatest strength. 40% power, Tom called out. The air in the chamber began to shimmer, dimensional fold beginning to form. Through special viewers, Lisa could see the space around the ship beginning to bend. The Mobius wasn't just traveling through space. It was folding space itself, using principles that the Bright Ones considered impossible. 60%. Small objects near the ship began to float as gravity went weird. 7th dimensional interface active. On the other side of Mars, automated satellites sent out false signals, hiding their work from any watching aliens. The Bright Ones and other species had spy satellites all through the solar system, but humanity had gotten good at misdirection. While the aliens laughed at their primitive space program, the real work happened in secret. 80% power. Warning lights flashed as reality itself bent around the ship. All systems holding steady. Lisa's tablet showed readings that would make any physicist's jaw drop. The ship wasn't just accessing higher dimensions. It was stable in them. The human crew's natural dimensional awareness acted like an anchor, keeping the ship from flying apart. 100% power achieved. Tom's voice held excitement he couldn't hide. Full dimensional fold established. For a moment, the ship seemed to exist in many places at once. Lisa's special viewers showed it twisting through dimensions that shouldn't exist, leaving trails of light that bent in impossible ways. Then everything snapped back to normal as the power wound down. Test successful, Lisa announced, and cheers filled the chamber. She looked at the readings with pride. The ship had performed better than their highest hopes. Her phone buzzed. A message from Ambassador Stone. Council meeting went as expected. Complete success. They suspect nothing. Perfect. While Stone kept the aliens busy laughing at fake theories, the real project had moved forward in secret. The Bright Ones were so sure of their superiority that they never bothered to look closely at what humanity was really doing. Begin crew selection process, Lisa ordered. We need people with the highest dimensional awareness scores. They had tested thousands of candidates, looking for humans who could naturally sense and work with higher dimensions. As her team celebrated around her, Lisa thought about what they had achieved. The ship didn't just prove humanity's theories right. It showed that being primitive had its advantages. Sometimes the simplest answer was the right one, even if advanced aliens couldn't see it. The INS Mobius waited silently in its chamber, ready to show the galaxy what humanity could really do. Soon, very soon, no one would be laughing anymore. The emergency alarm woke Admiral Reed at 3 in the morning. His bedroom screen lit up with urgent messages as he jumped out of bed. A massive fleet had just appeared at the edge of the solar system. Over 500 ships belonging to the Bright Ones. "Get me the president," he ordered his AI assistant while quickly putting on his uniform, "and connect me to the Mars base." Before he could finish dressing, his screen split to show both the president and Dr. Gray. Neither looked surprised by the emergency call. They had all known this day might come. "They're not even trying to hide their numbers," the president said, her face tight with worry. "This is a show of force." On Reed's screen, tactical displays showed the Bright One ships moving into position. Their crystalline vessels sparkled like stars, spreading out to surround the solar system. Each ship was more advanced than anything humanity had officially built. "Dr. Gray," Reed asked, "how ready is the Mobius?" "We can launch in 6 hours," Lisa answered from her base on Mars. "The crew is already suited up and running final checks." A new signal cut through their conversation. The Bright Ones were broadcasting on all frequencies, their message repeating in every human language. "People of Earth," the voice of High Commissioner Light of Pure Reason rang out. "Your recent claims about dimensional travel have forced us to take action. We cannot allow a primitive species to endanger themselves and others with dangerous experiments." Reed's tactical screen showed more ships arriving. The Bright One's fleet now numbered over 700 vessels. "For your own safety," the message continued, "all human scientific research will now be supervised by the Bright Ones. This is not a request. You have 48 Earth hours to agree to our terms. After that, we will take control by force if necessary." The president's face hardened. "They're not here to protect us. They're scared of what we might become." "Correct," Reed said. "Our primitive understanding of dimensions threatens everything they believe about physics, about their own superiority." On Mars, Lisa's team worked frantically to prepare the Mobius for launch. The ship's twisted hull reflected the red emergency lights as crew members ran final system checks. "We're picking up energy readings from their fleet," Reed reported, studying his displays. "Their weapons are powered up. This isn't just a threat. They're ready to attack." The president stood up, her decision made. "Dr. Gray, you have authorization to launch as soon as the ship is ready. Admiral Reed, begin evacuating our surface facilities. Make it look like we're preparing to surrender." "Yes, Madam President," they both answered. Through the next hours, Earth buzzed with activity. On the surface, it looked like panic and defeat. Ships carried people and equipment into underground bunkers. Leaders made frightened public statements. News channels reported on the crisis with increasing alarm. But deep under Mars, humanity's real response was getting ready to fly. "They're scanning everything," Reed reported, "watching our every move." "Good," the president replied. "Let them think they know exactly what we're doing. Let them think we're scared and harmless." The Bright Ones sent another message, this one just to Earth's leaders. High Commissioner Light of Pure Reason appeared on their screens, his crystalline form glowing with smug satisfaction. "We see you preparing to make the wise choice," he said. "This is for the best. Under our guidance, humanity will be safe, protected, limited to what you can truly understand." The president gave him a carefully weak smile. "We are considering your generous offer," she said, using the diplomatic words they'd prepared long ago. After the transmission ended, she looked at Reed and Lisa. "Status: fleet holding position," Reed reported. "They think they have us trapped." "Mobius ready in 2 hours," Lisa added. "All systems green." The president nodded. "Then we stick to the plan. Let them think they've won. Let them think we're just scared primitives who know when we're beaten." In the darkness of space, the Bright One's fleet waited, their ships glittering with power and pride. They had no idea what was coming. No idea at all. Captain Mark Wells sat in the command chair of the INS Mobius, his hands resting lightly on the consciousness interface panels. Around him, his crew of 12 took their positions at stations that no other ship in the galaxy possessed. They weren't just the best pilots and engineers. They were the humans with the strongest natural ability to sense higher dimensions. All systems check complete, his first officer, Jack, reported. Dimensional drives ready. Through the special viewers built into the bridge windows, Mark could see the space around the ship rippling with strange energies. The Mobius didn't just travel through space, it twisted space itself. "Dr. Gray," he called to the control room, "we're ready for launch." Lisa's voice came through clearly. "Understood, Captain." Beginning launch sequence. Opening dimensional gates in 3 minutes. The ship hummed with power as its systems came online. The hull's strange patterns began to move faster, creating shapes that human eyes weren't meant to see. Bright One's fleet still in position, Jack reported, checking the tactical screens. "They're watching Earth, not paying attention to Mars at all." Mark smiled. The aliens were so sure of themselves, so certain they knew everything humanity could do. They hadn't even bothered to look closely at Mars. 2 minutes to launch, Lisa announced. Starting power-up sequence. The ship's consciousness interfaces began to glow. Mark felt the familiar tingle as his mind connected to the ship's systems. Around him, his crew made similar connections. Together, their awareness would guide the ship through dimensions that the Bright Ones thought were impossible to reach. Energy readings at maximum, engineering reported. Dimensional fold stable. 1 minute to launch. Mark thought about everything that had led to this moment. Years of secret work, countless tests and experiments, all while letting the galaxy think humanity was just fumbling around with basic science. 30 seconds. The ship's viewers showed the chamber's walls beginning to bend as space itself warped around them. What looked like cracks in reality began to appear, but they weren't cracks. They were doors to higher dimensions. 10 seconds. Mark gripped his interface panels tighter. Everything humanity had worked for came down to this moment. Launch, now. The Mobius shot forward, but not in any normal direction. It moved sideways through reality itself, passing through dimensions that the Bright Ones said couldn't exist. The launch chamber disappeared, replaced by swirling patterns of higher dimensional space. "All stations report," Mark ordered, his voice steady despite the incredible things he was seeing through the viewers. Engineering stable. Navigation locked. Power systems nominal. Dimensional drives functioning perfectly. The ship moved through space like nothing ever built before. It didn't push through dimensions like the Bright One ships did. Instead, it flowed between them, guided by its crew's natural dimensional awareness. "No signs of pursuit," Jack reported with a grin. "They haven't even noticed we've launched." Mark nodded. "Take us to attack position Alpha. Let's show them what humanity can really do." The Mobius glided through higher dimensions, approaching the Bright One's fleet from angles they couldn't even perceive. Through the viewers, their crystalline ships looked frozen and flat, stuck in their limited understanding of space. Attack position reached, navigation reported. Ready to drop into normal space. Mark took a deep breath. This was the moment of truth. Send the message to Earth. We're ready. Thousands of miles away, in the White House Situation Room, the president received their signal. She straightened her jacket and opened a channel to the Bright One's fleet. "High Commissioner," she said, her voice strong and clear, "about your generous offer to supervise humanity. We have a counter-proposal." At that exact moment, the Mobius dropped back into normal space, appearing impossibly close to the Bright One's command ship. Its hull twisted with energies that their sensors couldn't understand, powered by principles their science said were impossible. The time for hiding was over. The time for being underestimated was done. Now, humanity would show the galaxy what primitive humans could really do. High Commissioner Light of Pure Reason stared in disbelief at the impossible ship that had appeared next to his fleet. The human vessel's hull twisted in ways that hurt even his crystalline eyes to look at. His sensors couldn't make sense of the readings they were getting. "Impossible," he whispered. This cannot exist. Oh, but it does. The human president's voice came through the communication channel. Would you like to see what else impossible things we can do? The Bright One's fleet opened fire. Beams of fifth-dimensional energy, weapons that could tear apart normal space, shot toward Earth's orbital defenses. They expected an easy victory against primitive technology. They were wrong. Now, Captain Wells, the president ordered. Aboard the Mobius, Mark felt the ship's consciousness interface hum with power. All crews, execute Battle Plan Alpha, he commanded. Show them what we can really do. The Mobius moved in ways that broke every law of physics the Bright Ones knew. It didn't just dodge their attacks. It bent space around them, turning their own weapon beams back on themselves. 3 crystalline ships shattered as their own fire hit them. How? Light of pure reason demanded. Your species cannot understand these principles. We understand them differently, Mark replied, his voice calm as the Mobius danced through dimensions. That's what you never figure out. You're so focused on pure logic that you miss the simple truths. The Bright Ones launched their fastest ships, vessels that could skip through the 5th dimension like stones across water. They surrounded the Mobius, weapons charge. End this foolishness. Light of pure reason ordered. Surrender now, and we will be merciful. Mark smiled. Engineering, initiate dimensional fold. The space around the Mobius began to twist. The ship's human crew, working through their consciousness interfaces, shaped higher dimensions in ways the Bright One's computers couldn't process. Reality itself bent to their will. Suddenly, the attacking ships found themselves firing at empty space. The Mobius had moved in a direction their sensors couldn't detect, through a dimension they couldn't reach. Impossible. Light of pure reason's crystalline form flashed with patterns of fear and confusion. Our calculations prove this cannot be done. Your calculations were incomplete, Mark said, just like your understanding of humanity. The Mobius reappeared behind the Bright One's command ship, but it didn't fire weapons. Instead, it created a dimensional pocket that trapped 20 enemy vessels in a space between realities. The ships hung there, unable to move or fire, caught in dimensions their technology couldn't handle. More Bright One ships attacked, firing from multiple dimensions at once. The Mobius absorbed their energy attacks and redirected them through 7th dimensional space, turning their own power against them. Each blast meant for Earth's defenses ended up hitting the Bright One's fleet instead. How are you doing this? Light of pure reason demanded. Your technology is primitive. Your science is basic. Your minds are simple. Our minds, Mark replied, as the Mobius created another dimensional fold, are exactly why we can do this. We don't just think about higher dimensions. We feel them. We dream them. Our primitive brains connect to them naturally. The Bright One's fleet tried to retreat, but the Mobius was faster. It created dimensional barriers that their ships couldn't pass through, trapping them in normal space. Listen carefully. The president's voice came through again. We don't want to destroy your fleet. We don't want revenge for your mockery. We just want respect. Through the Mobius's viewers, Mark watched the Bright One's ships stop firing. Their crystal hulls flickered with patterns of confusion and fear. For the first time in their history, they faced something their advanced science couldn't explain. 20 of your ships are trapped between dimensions, Mark announced. We can free them, or we can leave them there forever. The choice is yours. Light of pure reason's voice had lost all its arrogance when he replied. What are your terms? The Mobius hovered in space, its hull still twisting through impossible angles, as humanity prepared to explain exactly how the galaxy was going to change. Captain Mark Wells stood at the Mobius's main viewer, watching reality unfold in ways no being had ever seen before. Through the 7th dimensional viewport, space itself looked like a flowing river of possibilities. Colors that didn't exist in normal space danced across his vision. Shapes that couldn't exist in 3 dimensions twisted and turned through higher planes of reality. Recording all sensor data, Jack reported from his station. The Bright Ones won't be able to deny this evidence. The ship hung in a space between dimensions, a quiet moment after their victory over the crystalline fleet. Through their consciousness interfaces, the crew could feel the higher dimensions like warm currents against their skin. "Look there," Mark said, pointing to a pattern in the dimensional flow. That's what they never understood. That's why their calculations said this was impossible. Through the viewer, they could see how the dimensions weren't separate things like floors in a building. They were more like threads in a fabric, weaving together in ways that the Bright Ones' rigid, logical minds couldn't grasp. Picking up transmission from the Bright Ones' command ship, communications reported. "They're asking how we're able to see these patterns." Mark smiled. "Show them." The Mobius's sensors sent data to the Bright One ship, showing them what the human crew could see. Through the viewport, Mark watched Light of Pure Reason's crystalline vessel shimmer with patterns of shock and disbelief. "This cannot be." The High Commissioner's voice came through, shaking slightly. "Our greatest scientists spent millennia studying dimensional theory. Our computers calculated every possibility." "That was the problem," Mark replied. "You tried to understand it all with pure logic, with mathematics alone. But reality isn't just numbers and equations." The Mobius moved through another dimensional current, its hull twisting to match patterns that the crew could feel instinctively. The ship's human designers had built it to work with their natural abilities, not fight against them. "Watch this," Mark said, placing his hands on the consciousness interface. He felt his crew doing the same, their minds joining together through the ship's systems. Together, they guided the Mobius through a series of dimensional folds that the Bright One's computers said were impossible. The ship flowed between realities like water finding its way downhill, following paths that couldn't be calculated but could be felt. "Your technology is crude," Light of Pure Reason admitted, watching through his own sensors. "Your manufacturing methods are basic. Your computers are simple. But somehow, we see what you miss," Mark finished for him. "Humans have always been able to sense higher dimensions. We feel them in our dreams. We touch them in our thoughts. We just needed to build a ship that worked with that ability instead of trying to force reality to follow rigid rules." Through the viewport, they could see the Bright One ships trying to analyze what the Mobius was doing. Their advanced sensors shot beams of energy through multiple dimensions, attempting to understand how the human vessel moved. "Your ships are more advanced than ours," Mark continued. "Your weapons are more powerful. Your computers are faster. But you're trapped by your own certainty. You decided what was impossible before you understood everything that was possible." The Mobius created another dimensional fold, this one showing the Bright Ones something their sensors had never detected: the natural flows and currents of higher dimensional space. "All this time," Light of Pure Reason said slowly, "it was there. We just couldn't see it." "Because you weren't looking for it," Mark replied. "You were looking for what you expected to find. Sometimes, the most primitive way of thinking lets you see things that pure logic misses." The crew felt a shift in the dimensional currents. Reality itself seemed to be responding to their presence, showing them new paths and possibilities that no species had ever imagined. "We have much to learn," Light of Pure Reason admitted, his crystalline ship dimming in what seemed like humility. Perhaps we could learn from each other." Mark looked at his crew, saw them nodding. Sometimes the greatest victory wasn't in defeating an enemy, but in helping them understand a greater truth. The great hall of the Galactic Council was silent. No one laughed now. No one even whispered. Every being in the chamber watched as Ambassador James Stone walked to the center platform once again. This time, he carried no data device. He didn't need one. Behind him, through the chamber's massive windows, the INS Mobius hung in space. Its twisted hull caught the light of nearby stars, bending it through impossible angles. Even now, most species couldn't look at it directly without feeling dizzy. "Honorable members of the Council," Stone began, his voice calm but carrying a new weight of authority. "1 week ago, I stood here and told you about humanity's breakthrough in seventh-dimensional travel. You laughed then. I don't hear anyone laughing now. High Commissioner Light of Pure Reason floated forward, his crystalline form dimmed with humility. We owe humanity an apology, he announced. Our certainty in our own advanced science blinded us to new possibilities. We were wrong. Stone nodded in acknowledgement. Humanity does not seek revenge for your mockery, he said. We don't want to dominate or control. We want what we have always wanted, the right to follow our own path of development, and to be treated with respect. The council chamber's screens lit up with images from the battle. They showed the Mobius moving through dimensions that most species couldn't even perceive, using powers that the most advanced computers couldn't explain. We offer peace, Stone continued. We offer cooperation, but we also offer a warning. He paused, making eye contact with various council members. Never again will humanity be dismissed as primitive. Never again will our ideas be mocked simply because they don't match your expectations. The blob-like being who had laughed so hard a week ago raised an appendage. But how? It asked. How did you hide such advanced technology from our sensors? Stone smiled. We didn't hide our technology. It was right in front of you. You saw exactly what we were doing. You just couldn't believe it was possible, so you didn't look closer. Sometimes the best place to hide something is in plain sight. Captain Mark Wells, standing behind Stone, stepped forward. Through the Mobius's special interfaces, he and his crew had seen reality in ways that would change science forever. We've prepared information packages, he announced. Basic explanations of how human consciousness naturally interfaces with higher dimensions. We're willing to share this knowledge. The council chamber buzzed with excitement. Species that had looked down on humanity now leaned forward, eager to learn. But Stone added, his voice turning serious, humanity will develop at our own pace, in our own way. No more attempts to control us. No more dismissing our theories because they don't match your established science. Light of Pure Reason moved to the center of the chamber, his crystalline form glowing with formal patterns. I speak for the Bright Ones, he announced. We accept these terms. Moreover, we wish to establish new protocols for dealing with younger species. Perhaps, his form flickered with what seemed like embarrassment. Perhaps we have been too quick to judge what is and isn't possible. Stone walked to the High Commissioner and held out his hand in the human gesture of agreement. After a moment, Light of Pure Reason extended a crystalline appendage to touch it. Let this mark the beginning of a new era, Stone announced to the chamber, one where no species theories are dismissed simply because they think differently. One where we learn from each other instead of judging each other. As applause filled the chamber, Stone looked out at the Mobius again. Its hull twisted through dimensions that most beings couldn't comprehend, a constant reminder that sometimes the most profound discoveries came from the most unexpected places. The laughter had stopped, but something better had replaced it. Respect, curiosity, and the promise of a future where humanity would help guide the galaxy toward new understandings of reality itself. In the end, it turned out that being primitive wasn't a weakness at all. Sometimes, it took a simpler perspective to see the deepest truths.